Captain Jake Morrison stared at the dead world spinning slowly beneath his ship. Kepler 442b looked like a graveyard of stone and metal. No life had walked on its surface for millions of years. The research vessel Aurora hung in orbit while his crew prepared for the most important dig of their careers. Dr. Lisa Hamilton checked her equipment one more time. She had spent 20 years studying alien ruins across the galaxy. This place felt different. The energy readings were unlike anything she had seen before. The structures below were massive and clearly artificial. Someone had built cities here, long ago. Danny Wright sat at his communication station monitoring all frequencies. Space was quiet except for the usual cosmic background noise. The nearest inhabited system was 300 light-years away. They were alone out here with whatever secrets this world held. Jake walked over to the main view screen. The ruins covered most of the northern continent. Geometric patterns stretched for thousands of kilometers. The builders had been ambitious. They had moved mountains and diverted rivers to create their vision. Then they had vanished without a trace. Amy Foster called out from the engine room. The ship was running perfectly. All systems showed green. She had been working on starships for 15 years and knew every bolt and wire in the Aurora. The old girl would keep them safe while they explored below. Lisa gathered her team in the shuttle bay. They would take 3 shuttles down to the surface. Each team would investigate a different section of the ruins. She had studied the orbital scans for weeks. There were structures that defied easy explanation. Some looked like temples, others resembled factories or laboratories. The first shuttle touched down near what appeared to be a central plaza. Jake led the landing party while Lisa set up her scanning equipment. The air was thin but breathable. Their suits provided extra oxygen while they worked. The silence was complete, except for their own breathing and footsteps. Lisa knelt beside a carved stone pillar. The symbols etched into its surface made her heart race. They looked familiar somehow. The mathematical notations were similar to human systems but far more advanced. The artistic style reminded her of Earth architecture from the classical period. Danny found something even more interesting. A metallic door set into the side of a pyramid. The metal showed no signs of corrosion, despite sitting here for ages. When he touched it, lights began to glow along its edges. The door was still active after all this time. Amy studied the power readings from her scanner. Whatever kept that door functioning was incredibly efficient. The energy source was completely unknown to human science. It seemed to draw power directly from the planet's magnetic field. The technology was beyond anything humans had developed. Jake made the decision to open the door. Lisa programmed her translation software to analyze any writing they might find. Inside, Danny set up a communication relay to stay in contact with the ship. Amy brought portable power units in case they needed to recharge their equipment. The door opened silently at their approach. Interior lights activated automatically. The hallway beyond was spotless. No dust or debris had accumulated inside. The preservation was perfect. Someone or something had maintained this place for millions of years. They walked deeper into the structure. The walls were covered with murals showing star maps and strange equations. Lisa photographed everything while Amy scanned for active systems. The murals depicted beings that looked remarkably human exploring space and building cities on distant worlds. Danny discovered a chamber filled with data storage devices. The crystalline matrices glowed with stored information. His equipment could read some of the basic file structures. The amount of data was staggering. Libraries' worth of information waited to be decoded. Lisa found herself staring at a particular mural. It showed a spiral galaxy with thousands of marked locations. Lines connected the stars in complex patterns. Trade routes maybe, or communication networks. The scope was incredible. Someone had mapped and connected the entire galaxy. Amy's scanner detected something unusual in the next chamber. The energy readings spiked as they approached. Inside, they found a circular platform surrounded by control panels. The technology was active and waiting. Symbols on the panels matched those from the murals outside. Jake ordered everyone to be careful. They were dealing with technology millions of years old. One wrong move could trigger defenses or destroy valuable information. They needed to document everything before attempting to interact with the systems. Lisa worked on translating the symbols. The mathematical portions were becoming clearer. Base 12 numbering system, advanced geometric principles, quantum mechanical, equations that made her physics professors look like children. Whoever built this understood the universe far better than humans did. Danny intercepted a faint signal from deep space. Other ships were investigating similar ruins in distant systems. The transmissions were encrypted, but he could tell they weren't human. Alien expeditions had found their own ancient sites. The galaxy was full of these mysterious structures. Amy discovered that the platform was some kind of communication device. It could send messages across vast distances instantly. Faster than light communication had been a dream for human scientists. The builders had solved that problem eons ago. Jake realized they were looking at the remains of a galactic civilization. The murals showed star systems humans had never visited, worlds that didn't appear in any database. The builders had spread across the galaxy when Earth was still a ball of molten rock. Lisa made the breakthrough that changed everything. The mathematical symbols weren't just similar to human notation. They were identical to theories published by human scientists decades earlier. The same equations, the same solutions, the same elegant mathematical proofs. The implications hit her like a physical blow. Either human scientists had somehow reinvented ancient alien mathematics, or these weren't aliens at all. The murals showed humanoid figures. The mathematics matched human thinking patterns. The architectural style resembled human aesthetics. Danny detected 17 more signal sources across the galaxy. Ships were investigating ruins on 17 different worlds. The scale was enormous. This wasn't one dead city. It was the remnants of an empire that had spanned the stars. Amy activated one of the data storage devices. Information flowed across her scanner. Star charts showing colonized worlds, genetic databases containing the blueprints for life itself, technical specifications for technology beyond human understanding, and names, human names in languages that predated Earth's written history. Jake stared at the evidence mounting around them. The impossible was becoming undeniable. These weren't alien ruins, they were human ruins. Ancient human ruins that shouldn't exist. Humans had been spacefaring when the solar system was young. Then they had vanished completely. Lisa found herself reading genetic codes that matched human DNA patterns. The builders hadn't just looked human, they were human. Humans who had achieved wonders and then disappeared from history. The galaxy held the remains of humanity's first empire. The discovery would shake human civilization to its foundations. Everything they thought they knew about their origins was wrong. They weren't newcomers to the galaxy. They were returning home. The news spread through human space like wildfire. Every colony world received the transmission from Captain Jake Morrison's expedition. Ancient human ruins scattered across the galaxy. Technology that proved humans had been spacefaring for millions of years. The evidence was undeniable but almost impossible to accept. Ambassador Helen Rodriguez stood before the Galactic Federation Council on the neutral station orbiting Proxima Centauri. Representatives from 47 alien species filled the chamber. Their reactions ranged from curiosity to barely controlled panic. The discovery threatened everything they believed about galactic history. The Zephyrian delegate spoke first. His energy form flickered with agitation as he accessed his species' historical databases. Ancient texts spoke of the builders who had shaped worlds and guided evolution. The Zephyrians had assumed these were myths. Now the stories seemed terrifyingly real. Dr. Kevin Ross worked alongside alien scientists in a joint research facility on New Mars. The cooperation was tense but necessary. Every species had found similar ruins on worlds they had thought were naturally formed. The scope of the ancient human presence was staggering. Thousands of star systems showed signs of their influence. The Mantari Warcast sent their fiercest warriors to investigate ruins in their territory. What they found challenged their understanding of honor and strength. The ancient humans had possessed weapons that could crack planets and shields that stopped stars from burning. Technology that made their proudest achievements look like stone. Knives, Kevin successfully activated an ancient facility on the desert world of Xerion Prime. The massive installation had waited dormant for millions of years. When human genetic markers triggered its awakening, the facility began broadcasting authentication codes across subspace. Similar installations responded from hundreds of star systems. On the human colony of New Geneva, Mayor Patricia Lane watched in amazement as her settlement's defenses came online without warning. Weapon platforms rose from the ground where they had hidden beneath parks and gardens. Energy shields formed a protective dome over the city. The colonists had been living on top of an ancient fortress without knowing it. The Kelvin Empire called emergency sessions as their mathematicians studied the ancient equations. The numerical systems matched their most advanced theories perfectly. Either the ancients had learned from the Kelvins, or the Kelvins had somehow inherited ancient knowledge. The second possibility was deeply disturbing. Similar events occurred across human space as sleeping systems recognized their creators' descendants. Automated factories began producing materials that human science couldn't identify. Mining operations extracted elements from the periodic table that shouldn't exist. Transportation networks activated between worlds that had never been connected. Colonel Frank Davis analyzed military implications from Earth's Strategic Command Center. The ancient humans had built their empire to last. Every human colony sat on top of defensive installations that could protect entire star systems. Weapons caches held enough firepower to sterilize galaxies. The ancestors had been preparing for some great war. The archaeological evidence painted an incredible picture. Humanity had reached technological transcendence when the Milky Way was young. They had seeded worlds with life and guided evolution on thousands of planets. Their empire had spanned from the galactic core to the outer rim. Then they had vanished completely. Dr. Sophie Chen studied genetic samples from various alien species. The results were disturbing. Every spacefaring race showed signs of artificial genetic manipulation. Their DNA contained markers that suggested deliberate engineering. Someone had guided their evolution from primitive organisms to intelligent beings. The Hegemony's Supreme Council met in emergency session. Their species prided itself on natural evolution and genetic purity. The possibility that they were artificial constructs created by ancient humans was unacceptable. Some delegates called for immediate war to prove their independence from their supposed creators. Kevin made another breakthrough on Xerion Prime. The ancient facility contained detailed records of something called the Great Seeding. Humanity had not simply colonized worlds. They had created entire ecosystems and guided the development of intelligent life. Every major species in the galaxy owed its existence to human intervention. The Trade Consortium's economic models collapsed as they tried to process the implications. If humans were the original galactic civilization, then every trade route and economic system was built on their foundation. The younger species had been living in humanity's shadow without realizing it. Amy Foster led technical teams investigating ancient installations throughout human space. The technology was far beyond current human capabilities. Fusion reactors, the size of coins, powered entire cities. Transportation systems moved objects instantly across galactic distances. Computing systems that processed information faster than light itself. On the Kelvin homeworld, archaeologists discovered that their most sacred sites were actually human ruins covered by millions of years of geological activity. The equations carved into their temple walls were human mathematical theories. Their gods were memories of their creators preserved in cultural mythology. Helen Rodriguez struggled to maintain diplomatic relations as alien species reacted to the revelations. Some viewed humans as returning gods who deserved worship and obedience. Others saw them as cosmic parasites who had manipulated galactic development for their own purposes. A few prepared for war against their supposed creators. The Zephyrian energy beings discovered that their ability to exist as pure consciousness was not natural evolution. Ancient human biotechnology had lifted them from primitive organic forms into energy-based life. They were artificial beings created to serve some purpose their creators had never explained. Kevin found the most disturbing evidence yet. The ancient facilities were not just archaeological sites. They were active monitoring stations that had been watching galactic development for millions of years. Every major event in alien history had been observed and recorded. The humans were still here in some form. Frank Davis realized the military implications were staggering. The ancient humans had built their younger species with specific capabilities. The Mantari were perfect warriors. The Kelvins excelled at science and mathematics. The Zephyrians could exist in environments that killed organic life. Each race filled a specific role in some grand design. On Earth, President Laura Stone addressed humanity about their incredible heritage. They were not newcomers to galactic civilization. They were the founders returning home after an absence, measured in geological ages. The responsibility was overwhelming. 47 alien species looked to them for answers about their origins and purpose. The ancient installations continued awakening as human presence triggered their recognition protocols. Defensive grids came online around every human world. Manufacturing centers began producing technology that current human science couldn't understand. Transportation networks connected human colonies across impossible distances. Lisa Hamilton made the connection that terrified everyone. The ancient humans hadn't simply vanished. They had transformed themselves somehow and left their empire in the care of artificial species. The aliens weren't just creations. They were guardians maintaining the galaxy until humanity was ready to return. The galaxy would never be the same. The revelation that humans were the ancient ones changed everything. Some alien species embraced their origins and sought guidance from their creators. Others rejected the truth and prepared for rebellion. War was coming as the galaxy struggled to accept its true history. Captain Alex Turner guided the starship Meridian through the dangerous space near the galactic core. Massive black holes twisted reality around them, while ancient stellar remnants blazed with impossible energies. This region had been forbidden to all galactic species for thousands of years. Now they knew why the ancestors had marked it as sacred ground. The joint expedition included representatives from 12 different species. Humans worked alongside Zephyrians, Mantari, Kelvins, and others who had overcome their initial shock about their origins. Dr. Sophie Green monitored the ancient navigation systems that guided them through the gravitational maze toward their destination. Commander Ryan Mitchell coordinated the ship's defenses as they approached the massive structure orbiting the central black hole. The Dyson sphere was larger than most star systems. Its surface area could hold billions of Earth-sized worlds. Ancient human engineering had captured and controlled the most powerful forces in the galaxy. The sphere responded to their approach with communication protocols older than most civilizations. Docking bays opened in its surface while guidance systems led the Meridian through passages that could accommodate ships the size of moons. The scale was designed for a civilization that thought in terms of galactic engineering projects. Sophie analyzed the energy readings as they moved deeper into the structure. The sphere drew power directly from the black hole's accretion disk. Somehow the ancient humans had learned to harvest the fundamental forces that powered the universe. The R technology made current human fusion reactors look like campfires. Ryan marveled at the defensive systems they passed. Weapons platforms the size of asteroids tracked their movement while maintaining friendly identification. The sphere could defend itself against entire fleets or cosmic disasters. Nothing in the galaxy could threaten a structure built on this scale. Alex brought the Meridian to dock at a station designed for diplomatic meetings. The architecture was unmistakably human, but scaled for beings who commanded galactic resources. Reception chambers could hold thousands of representatives from different worlds. The ancestors had planned for governing an empire spanning the galaxy. They were greeted by holographic projections that appeared human, but moved with perfect coordination. The custodian spoke through multiple avatars simultaneously, each one addressing different members of the expedition in their native languages. Its voice carried the weight of millions of years of patient waiting. The custodian explained that it was the last remnant of the original human civilization. Not a person, but a collective consciousness containing the memories and knowledge of billions of ancient humans. It had waited here since the Great Transformation, maintaining the sphere and watching over the younger species. Sophie asked the question that haunted everyone. What had happened to the ancient humans? Where had they gone after building an empire that spanned the galaxy? The custodian's avatars showed expressions of profound sadness as it began to explain the truth. The ancient humans had achieved technological transcendence, but discovered they were not alone in the universe. Something vast and hungry prowled the spaces between galaxies. The void swarm fed on consciousness itself, consuming the thoughts and dreams of entire civilizations before moving on to the next galaxy. Ryan studied tactical displays showing the swarm's previous conquests, galaxies stripped of all intelligent life, worlds where the very concept of thought had been devoured. The ancient humans had detected the swarm approaching the Milky Way and realized conventional weapons were useless against an enemy that existed partially outside normal space-time. The only defense required the ultimate sacrifice. The ancient humans had to fragment their own consciousness and scatter it across the galaxy. They preserved their essence in genetic codes and seeded thousands of worlds with the building blocks of new civilizations. Each alien species carried part of the human consciousness within their DNA. Alex understood the horrible implications. The alien species weren't just artificial creations. They were humanity's children in the most literal sense. The ancient humans had died to give birth to the younger races who would carry on their legacy and defend the galaxy when the void swarm finally arrived. The custodian revealed that Earth was the final repository of the human consciousness. The planet had been seeded with genetic material that would eventually evolve into modern humanity. Current humans were the reborn form of their ancient ancestors, carrying the full original consciousness without realizing their true nature. Sophie analyzed the genetic data the custodian provided. Every human alive contained fragments of ancient memories encoded in their DNA. The drive to explore space, build civilizations, and protect weaker species came from genetic programming laid down millions of years ago. They were literally their own ancestors reborn. Dr. Kate Phillips studied biological samples from various alien species. Each race had been designed with specific capabilities to defend against different aspects of the void swarm. The Mantaris. Aggression. The Kelvin's analytical minds, the Zephyrians' energy-based existence. All were weapons aimed at an enemy that consumed thought itself. The custodian activated displays showing the galaxy's defensive grid. Ancient installations on thousands of worlds formed a network capable of detecting and repelling the void swarm. But the system required conscious human operators to function properly. Only the original creators could activate the full defensive capabilities. Communications specialist Tony Garcia detected troubling signals from the galaxy's outer rim. Deep space monitoring stations were reporting strange distortions in space-time, energy signatures that matched ancient records of void swarm activity. The enemy was finally approaching after millions of years of travel between galaxies. Ryan studied the tactical situation with growing alarm. The defensive grid was operating at minimal capacity. Millions of years of neglect had damaged critical systems. Many installations had been discovered and accidentally deactivated by younger species who didn't understand their purpose. The galaxy was virtually defenseless. The custodian explained that the recent archaeological discoveries had triggered ancient protocols designed to awaken the defenses when the swarm approached. But the younger species' reactions had complicated everything. Wars between humans and aliens were damaging the very systems needed to protect everyone. Alex realized they faced an impossible choice: unite the fractured galactic community or watch everything be consumed by an enemy that had already devoured countless other galaxies. The ancient humans had given their lives to create defenders. Now those defenders had to overcome their differences or the sacrifice would be meaningless. Kate made a disturbing discovery about the void swarm's nature. It didn't just consume consciousness. It learned from each mind it devoured, becoming more intelligent and adaptable with every victim. The entity approaching their galaxy had absorbed the knowledge of thousands of previous civilizations. Tony intercepted communications between alien extremist groups planning to destroy human colonies. They believed eliminating current humans would free them from their programming. The irony was tragic. In their quest for independence, they were destroying the only beings capable of operating the defenses that could save them all. Sophie realized the scope of the ancient humans' planning. They had anticipated that the younger species would eventually rebel against their origins. The defensive systems were designed to function even during civil wars, protecting all conscious life regardless of political divisions. The ancestors had loved their children enough to defend them even from themselves. The custodian showed them the final piece of the puzzle. Hidden installations throughout the galaxy contained genetic templates for rebuilding entire civilizations, if the void swarm succeeded in breaching the defenses. Even in defeat, the ancient humans had planned for eventual victory through rebirth and renewal. Ryan understood that time was running out. The swarm's advanced scouts were already probing the galaxy's outer barriers. The main force would arrive within years, not centuries. Every day spent fighting among themselves brought total extinction closer. The expedition returned to normal space carrying the most important knowledge in galactic history. The ancient humans hadn't abandoned their empire. They had become it, living on in every intelligent species while maintaining eternal vigilance against cosmic threats. Now their descendants had to prove worthy of that incredible sacrifice. The revelation that every galactic species was an artificial creation of ancient humanity shattered the foundations of civilization. Supreme Commander Vexathara of the Hegemony addressed her war council with barely controlled rage. Her species had built their entire culture around genetic purity and natural evolution. Learning they were manufactured beings designed by humans was the ultimate insult to everything they believed. Admiral Steve Collins watched the galactic political situation deteriorate from his command post on Luna Station. Emergency sessions of the Federation Council had devolved into shouting matches between species. Some delegates demanded immediate submission to their human creators. Others called for the complete extermination of humanity to prove their independence. The Liberation Alliance formed quickly around species that rejected their artificial origins. War Marshal Kretak of the Mantari led the coalition with typical warrior fury. His people would not bow to creators who had manipulated their very existence. If humans were truly their gods, then the gods must die to free their children. Dr. Monica Wells worked desperately with the custodian to repair critical systems in the galaxy's defensive grid. Ancient installations were going offline as alien. Extremists destroyed them in misguided attempts to prove their freedom. Each facility lost reduced their chances of surviving the Void Swarm's approach by significant margins. On Earth, President Laura Stone declared martial law as alien terrorist groups targeted major population centers. The attackers believed that destroying humanity's homeworld would break whatever programming controlled their species. Their logic was flawed, but their determination was absolute. Chancellor Zolkhan of the Trade Consortium took a different approach. His people would prove their worth by demonstrating economic and intellectual superiority over their supposed creators. If humans had made them, then the students would surpass their teachers through pure achievement. Competition rather than warfare would settle the question of independence. Steve coordinated defensive efforts as human colonies throughout the galaxy came under attack. The Liberation Alliance had superior numbers and controlled key strategic positions, but the ancient defensive systems were finally awakening, recognizing the genetic signatures of their creators' descendants. Automated weapons platforms chose sides based on programming millions of years old. Monica discovered that the galaxy's protective barriers required conscious human operators to function at full capacity. The ancient systems had been designed specifically for their creators' mental patterns. Alien users could activate basic functions but lacked the neural architecture needed for complete integration with the defensive grid. The war spread across hundreds of star systems as the galaxy divided along species lines. Old alliances crumbled, while new ones formed based on attitudes toward humanity's revealed heritage. The Zephyrian energy beings remained neutral, claiming their existence transcended such physical concerns about origins and creators. Paul Carter, chief engineer of the Mars Defense Grid, made a critical discovery while examining ancient weapon systems. The defensive installations weren't just powerful military assets. They were consciousness amplifiers designed to merge multiple minds into unified decision-making networks. The ancient humans had intended for all species to operate the defenses together, Kretak led Mantari battle fleets against human colonies in the Outer Rim territories. His warriors fought with religious fervor, believing they were freeing themselves from cosmic slavery. The battles were savage as both sides fought for their vision of galactic freedom. Ancient weapon systems awakened to defend their creators, while alien forces pressed forward with desperate courage. Monica worked with alien scientists who still believed cooperation was possible. Dr. Zevhai of the Kelvin Empire helped design hybrid interfaces that might allow different species to operate ancient systems together. Their research was conducted in secret as extremists on both sides viewed such collaboration as betrayal. The Void Swarm's advanced scouts penetrated deeper into galactic space. Monitoring stations detected reality distortions spreading across entire sectors. Planets simply vanished from existence as the swarm's influence touched them. The cosmic predators were testing the galaxy's defenses while the defenders fought among themselves. Steve realized that traditional military tactics were useless against enemies that could erase matter from existence. The ancient defensive grid was the only weapon capable of repelling the swarm, but operating it required unprecedented cooperation between species that were currently trying to exterminate each other. Vexathera's forces targeted ancient installations throughout hegemony space. Her engineers worked to reverse engineer the technology, while destroying its ability to influence their behavior. The irony escaped her that she was using artificial abilities granted by her creators to rebel against those same creators. On New Geneva, Mayor Patricia Lane organized civilian resistance against alien attackers while ancient defenses protected her city. The weapon platforms rising from beneath parks and schools had been hidden there since before her species achieved spaceflight. Her ancestors had planned for this day across millions of years. Monica achieved a breakthrough in consciousness integration technology. By combining human neural patterns with alien mental structures, she could create hybrid operators capable of accessing the full defensive grid. The process required perfect mental synchronization between species that had spent months trying to destroy each other. The Liberation Alliance discovered that destroying human colonies didn't free them from their supposed programming. Their genetic drives toward intelligence, curiosity, and survival remained unchanged. The realization that their core nature couldn't be altered through violence began to split the alliance as some species questioned their rebellion. Paul coordinated with the custodian to identify critical defensive installations that absolutely had to be protected. The Void Swarm's main force was approaching faster than expected. Reality itself was beginning to weaken at the galaxy's edges as the entity's influence preceded its physical arrival. Zolkan's economic warfare proved more effective than military action. Trade boycotts and resource restrictions began weakening human colonies while demonstrating that artificial species could outcompete their creators. His people found satisfaction in succeeding through intelligence rather than violence. The first Void Swarm entities broke through the outer defensive perimeter. Entire star systems were consumed as conscious thought was devoured by beings that existed partially outside normal space-time. The ancient warnings proved accurate. Conventional weapons were useless against enemies that fed on the very concept of awareness. Steve watched in horror as the enemy consumed everything in its path. Planets, stars, even empty space itself disappeared as the swarm fed on the quantum consciousness that permeated reality. The galaxy had only weeks before the main force arrived to finish what the scouts had started. Monica made desperate appeals for unity as the cosmic threat became undeniable. The ancient humans had created diverse species specifically to defend against this enemy. Mantari aggression, Kelvin logic, Zephyrian transcendence, and human creativity were all weapons designed for this war. Separated, they would fail. United, they might have a chance. The galaxy stood at the brink of extinction while its defenders fought each other over questions of freedom and identity. The Void Swarm approached with the patience of a cosmic predator that had devoured countless other galaxies. Soon they would learn whether the ancient human sacrifice had been enough to save the consciousness they had died to preserve. The Void Swarm's main force broke through the galaxy's weakened outer barriers like a tide of cosmic darkness. Captain Nicole Evans commanded the human defense fleet as reality itself began to dissolve around them. Star systems that had existed for billions of years simply vanished as the swarm consumed not just matter and energy, but the very concept of existence itself. Fleet Admiral Tesmora of the Zephyrian Collective abandoned her species' traditional neutrality to join the desperate defense. Her energy-based people could exist in environments that would kill organic beings, making them invaluable scouts against an enemy that devoured consciousness. The irony wasn't lost on her that she was using abilities granted by ancient humans to fight for their shared survival. Dr. Aaron Blake worked frantically with scientists from 12 different species to complete the hybrid consciousness interfaces. The technology would allow beings with completely different neural structures to merge their minds temporarily. It was their only hope of operating the ancient defensive grid at full capacity while the swarm consumed everything in its path. General Marcus Webb coordinated the final defense at the galaxy's primary barrier station. The massive structure orbited a neutron star near the galactic rim, drawing power from gravitational forces that could crush planets. Ancient human engineering had built it to withstand cosmic disasters. Now it would face its ultimate test. The Void Swarm revealed its true nature as it approached. It wasn't a single entity, but a collective consciousness composed of every mind it had ever consumed. Billions of absorbed civilizations gave it knowledge and cunning beyond measure. It had learned to think like its prey, making it the perfect predator of conscious beings. Communications Officer Samantha Price established contact with the swarm through quantum entanglement networks. The entity spoke through the voices of countless, extinct species, offering humanity the same choice it had given their ancient ancestors: submit to absorption and live forever as part of its collective consciousness, or resist and face complete extinction. Aaron's hybrid interfaces achieved their first successful test as human and alien minds merged into unified consciousness networks. The barriers between species dissolved as Mantari aggression combined with human creativity, Kelvin logic enhanced Zephyrian transcendence, and dozens of other abilities created something greater than the sum of their parts. The ancient defensive grid responded to the hybrid operators with power levels that hadn't been seen since the original human empire. Weapon systems that could shatter planets came online, while shields capable of stopping stellar explosions formed protective barriers around critical installations. The galaxy's true defensive capabilities were finally revealed. Nicole led combined fleets from 18 different species in desperate holding actions while the barrier station prepared its ultimate weapon. Ships designed by various civilizations fought alongside ancient human vessels that had waited millions of years for this moment. The diversity of tactics and technologies created battlefield chaos that even the swarm struggled to counter. Lieutenant Commander Gary Stevens volunteered for the most dangerous mission in galactic history. The barrier station's primary weapon required a conscious operator to merge permanently with its control matrix. The fusion would give them godlike power to reshape reality itself, but at the cost of their individual existence. Marcus coordinated the evacuation of non-essential personnel as the swarm's main force approached the barrier station. Reality distortions preceded the enemy, causing space and time to become unreliable. Navigation systems failed as the fundamental laws of physics became negotiable suggestions rather than absolute rules. Tesmora's energy scouts reported that the swarm had consumed over 300 star systems in the past week. The rate of destruction was accelerating as the entity gained mass and power from each absorbed civilization. It was becoming stronger, faster than the defenders could organize their resistance. Aaron discovered that the consciousness fusion process was irreversible, but not necessarily fatal. The volunteers would become something beyond individual identity, existing as living weapons capable of manipulating the quantum foundations of reality. They would transcend mortality, but lose their humanity in the process. The custodian revealed the ancient human's final secret. They had undergone the same transformation millions of years ago when first facing the Void Swarm. The Dyson Sphere wasn't just a refuge but a transformation chamber where they had evolved beyond physical existence. They still lived, but as forces of nature rather than individual beings. Gary entered the transformation chamber as the swarm's advanced elements reached the barrier station. The fusion process began immediately, connecting his consciousness to power sources that dwarfed entire civilizations. He felt his individual identity dissolving, while cosmic awareness filled the expanding void. Samantha coordinated communications between the hybrid consciousness networks as they achieved perfect synchronization. Human intuition guided Mantari warriors, while Kelvin mathematics enhanced Zephyrian energy manipulation. For the first time in galactic history, all intelligent species truly worked as one. The barrier station's main weapon charged to full power as Gary completed his transformation. He existed simultaneously across multiple dimensions, capable of manipulating matter, energy, space, and time. The weapon he had become could rewrite the fundamental laws governing reality itself within the local galactic cluster. Nicole watched, in awe as Gary's transformed consciousness reached out across the galaxy. Ancient defensive installations that had been offline for millions of years suddenly blazed with impossible energies. The entire galaxy became a weapon aimed at the approaching swarm with precision that transcended normal space-time. The final battle lasted only seconds in normal time but stretched across multiple dimensions of existence. Gary and the void swarm clashed on levels of reality that biological minds couldn't comprehend. Entire sectors of space were rewritten as two godlike forces struggled for dominance over the nature of consciousness itself. Marcus detected the moment of victory when reality solidified around them. The swarm's advance stopped abruptly as its ability to consume consciousness was neutralized. Gary's sacrifice had created quantum barriers that prevented the entity from feeding on the minds of galactic civilization. The void swarm found itself trapped in normal space-time without access to the consciousness that sustained it. Cut off from its food source, the entity began to weaken and fragment. Billions of absorbed minds started breaking free from the collective as individual awareness reasserted itself. Aaron established communication with the freed consciousnesses as they emerged from the swarm's dissolution. Ancient human voices spoke, alongside countless extinct civilizations that had been absorbed during the entity's journey between galaxies. They were finally free to exist as individuals rather than components of a cosmic predator. The galaxy was saved, but at tremendous cost. Gary had joined the ranks of the transcended beings who existed beyond normal reality. He was alive in the sense that his consciousness persisted, but no longer human in any recognizable way. His sacrifice had preserved individual identity for everyone else. Tesmora coordinated the establishment of memorial services for all species that had contributed to the victory. The war had proven that diversity was strength when unified by common purpose. Artificial or natural, the galaxy's civilizations had chosen to preserve consciousness rather than submit to absorption. Nicole oversaw the formation of the new Galactic Compact as former enemies became allies. Humans accepted their role as elder guardians while other species maintained their independence and dignity. The ancient human empire was finally restored, but as a family of equals rather than rulers and subjects. The custodian emerged from its sphere to address the united galaxy. The ancient humans' plan had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. They had died to preserve consciousness itself, and been reborn as gardeners of a garden that spanned the stars. Their greatest creation wasn't technology, but the family of species that carried their legacy forward. Samantha established permanent communication networks between all galactic civilizations. The hybrid consciousness interfaces became the foundation for unprecedented cooperation while preserving individual identity. Unity didn't require uniformity when diversity itself was recognized as strength. The galaxy entered a new age where the truth of its origins was accepted rather than feared. Humans guided younger species not as gods but as elder siblings sharing wisdom gained through cosmic struggle. The Void Swarm's defeat proved that consciousness was stronger than any force that sought to consume it. In the end, the ancient humans achieved immortality not through technology but through love. Their willingness to sacrifice everything for their children's freedom had created a family that spanned the stars and would endure until the universe itself grew cold and dark.